So in a little while, in a few moments, we're going to arraign Fire Captain Mark Millem on three charges. One, burglary, two, possession of a controlled substance, and number three, being under the influence of a controlled substance. He'll be arraigned on those charges. The maximum sentence for these charges is 3 years and 8 months in state prison. This is a very serious case. Firefighters and police officers and are people that we rely on to help us when we're in danger, when we're in trouble. And sadly, this is a firefighter whose actions endangered many people in our community. So we give police officers and we give firefighters an enormous amount of responsibility and authority. And with that responsibility and authority has to come a lot of safeguards to make sure that those individuals are working on our behalf. This is an individual who we've charged who appears to have drug addiction issues, and that's certainly something that I think all of us encourage him to get treatment for. But his actions here threatened the safety and well-being of many residents in our community. This is an individual who tampered with controlled substances in fire departments all across the city of San Jose and removed some of the morphine and some of the other powerful pain-killing medication from vials, and then refilled those vials with saline or other substances which are not painkillers. And this was noticed on at least 2 occasions when individuals being treated by paramedics for serious injuries, for broken bones, for concussions, for other kinds of injuries which required them to go to the hospital, they were given by paramedics what the paramedics thought were morphine or painkillers, and it had no effect on the individuals they were treating, and that's because those substances had been removed from the vials. So that's incredibly serious. This has been a very thorough investigation, and these are the charges that we've currently filed. There may be more charges coming. The investigation's continuing as to showing what happened at each of the different fire stations. But I think because of this incident, it's clear that the fire department is taking additional precautions to make sure that something like this does not happen again.
What prompted the investigation?
What prompted the investigation is a few things. Number one is at one of the fire stations noticing that there were vials that were missing, and then this particular firefighter was seen at that fire station unexpectedly. Like, he was assigned to a different fire station, but he shows up at a different fire station on his day off, and shortly after that there are vials that are missing. So that was one clue. In addition, there were a couple of instances that I mentioned where individuals were being treated for injury by paramedics and the medication was not having any effect. So those were some of the things that led investigators to begin looking at all of the different fire stations, and they noticed not only were there certain vials that were missing, they noticed that numbers were not matching up between the numbers of that were on the particular vials and what had been checked into the department. And then when they looked closely at some of the vials, they noticed pry marks on them, indicating that the vials had been opened and closed. So those are the things that led them to begin this investigation.
Could there be additional charges? I haven't read all the charges, but are there charges related to potential injury to third parties like that?
I don't think that there's criminal charges that we're looking at for that. We charged 3 things. So one, we charged when he was arrested, when there was a search warrant done on his home. There was evidence found there of medications that he was not supposed to have that came from the fire departments. We could trace it back to the fire stations. And when his blood was examined upon arrest, he was under the influence of opiates. So that's one of the charges. In addition, he was in possession of controlled substances that he should not have been in possession of. And then number three, on one of the instances where vials went missing from one of the fire stations, and he was at that fire station when he had no reason to be around the time that the vials were taken, and his car was seen in the area, he was charged with commercial burglary, i.e. entering that fire station with the intention to steal something. So there are 16 fire stations all throughout San Jose, where San Jose City fire departments, where there are vials that are missing and irregularities, and we suspect that this individual who we've charged with one burglary may be charged with additional burglaries as we continue the investigation. But I do want to say that this is incredibly dangerous conduct that the individual firefighter engaged in. It put people's lives at risk. It absolutely did that. At the same time, we recognize if this is a person that is addicted to drugs and is addicted to painkillers, and we very much want this person to get the treatment they need, and we want him held accountable for the crimes he committed. So that's what our goals are in this prosecution.
And he'd already been given a second chance, legally, correct?
Yes, this is not the first time that this has happened with this individual, and he was given a second chance. And that's something that we'll take into account in terms of his accountability. In other words, if this is the first time he did this, that's one level of amount of accountability, that's one kind of punishment. But when this is the second time that you do that, the punishment and the accountability has to be more serious.
And you touched on this a little bit. Can you talk about the trust factor? I mean, just, relationship with the public, but even with your fellow firefighters. I mean, the trust is a big thing in a case like this.
Trust is everything in public safety. Trust is everything. The DA's office, the police department, the fire department, all of these organizations function only because the public trusts us. Police officers are arresting people, are taking care of their liberty, are taking them to jail. Firefighters are coming into your house, they're putting a fire out, or the paramedics are providing life-saving techniques to save your life. I mean, these are people that we give a lot of responsibility to, and people trust. They trust them. You trust when the fire department, the firefighters are coming to your house. They're competent, they're trained, they're going to put the fire out. They're not under the influence of any drugs, right? When you get on a plane, when you get on a bus, you assume that the person that's operating that is sober, and even the more so with police officers and firefighters. We rightly hold them to a higher standard, absolutely. And so a case like this can shake the trust that people in the public are going to have with paramedics and police officers and firefighters. That is why the fire department and the police department and the DA's office are taking this case so seriously. We want to assure the public that we've held the person who is responsible for doing this. We're going to make sure that they're punished appropriately. We want the person to get treatment, but we don't want them to be a firefighter anymore. I think that I'm not the fire chief, and it's not my job to decide who gets to be a firefighter, but I think it's pretty clear in a case like this person should no longer be a firefighter, period. We have to protect the public, and I think the fire department understands that, and I certainly understand that.